Let's talk about championship winning Dynasty football players.
Wow, that's a lot.
I want to give a big shout out to someone in our community named Moxie Mitch. I know he's a supporter over on Patreon. Appreciate you, brother. But we have a text channel on our Discord, link in the description if you want to join. That's called Suggested Content Ideas.
Yeah.
And he pasted this idea, which we thought was really fun. So that's what we're doing today. He says, you guys should do a video where you take all of the teams from your follower leagues that won the championship and see what players were in those teams the most. See which players had the highest percentage of being a champion on teams would be cool. So what we did, we didn't do entire rosters, okay, because this is a lot of names, a lot of stuff to go through. But what we did is we took the 12 starting rosters. We have 12 follower leagues right now, people who support us over on Patreon. We took those 12 starting rosters of championship winning teams and we looked at every single player, and now we're going to break it down. Who was the highest rostered championship player in our leagues?
Yep.
Over 100 players, obviously, that we're looking at today, all the way from our Alpha League to the Lima League. Do us a favor, like the video to show some support. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. And I want you to comment down below if you won a fantasy championship this year. Who was the most surprising player that brought you there and helped you bring it home? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to break it down by players who appeared once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, etc. On a championship winning starting roster. So why don't we look at the first list, which is players that appeared 1 time on a starting roster. Badake, anything stand out from this first list here? I mean, this isn't all that impressive, but there was at least 1 time, well, there was 1 time where the following players appeared on a championship roster this year for us in our leagues.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with the quarterback room specifically. And then I guess maybe we can kind of go from there.
I think I know where you're going. Like, surprise?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, there's 2 surprises. Russell Wilson, Brock Purdy. Like, what the hell is going on? The whole season, Russell Wilson was in shambles. You probably drafted him really high, maybe not really high, but you know, it was supposed to be
startup first round guy.
Yeah, dynasty startup. Yeah, it's supposed to be a significant guy that was going to come here and help you out, and that just wasn't the case this year. It wasn't the case to where he was this massive fantasy guy. And it was very disappointing. And
yeah, he went on a little run there to end the year, didn't he? I'm just looking at his last 2 games, and specifically in Week 17 versus Kansas City, he had 26 fantasy points, and then in Week 18 he had 30. Most people probably didn't have championships in Week 18, but that's interesting to look at.
Yeah, and he finished RB quarterback 17 on the year, so it wasn't amazing. You know, we were hoping. I mean, Russell Wilson, if I'm not mistaken, I think we've done this before, hasn't finished outside the top 10 in his career. I think it was only once, and that was because of that injury when he broke his finger or he had something with his finger.
Even per game basis, you're right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it was crazy that Russell Wilson was on this list.
Yeah, I thought that was crazy. I thought you were going to talk about Brock Purdy.
No, I mean,
because it's crazy that this player went from being, let's be honest, a complete taxi squad guy, potentially not in our leagues, but potentially in some leagues available on waiver wires. And this is why when a young quarterback just gets a chance at starting, use your fab. Yeah. When was Brock Purdy? When did he announce the starter? Was it like week 14 or something? I can't remember when it was, but that late in the season, we were very much on the page of like, you potentially have the starting quarterback for the Niners. Who cares about fab? It will reset in the offseason. Just go out and get him if you can.
Yeah.
He was 23 years old, and he had a very good end to the season.
Who knows 13, by the way.
Was it week 13?
Week 13 against Miami.
Which is insane. I mean, again, I think this goes to show, don't be afraid to use your fab. Those people who went out and bought Sam Ehlinger when he was named quarterback, hey, it sucks that you didn't hit, but use your fat. Like, just take a shot. Who cares if you don't hit? Because wouldn't you rather try than, like, be the one who missed out?
Yeah.
All right, I just want to see from weeks 13 to 18 where Purdy was as far as rankings go. So from week 13 to, well, I can only go to 17 here. From weeks 13 to 17, Brock Purdy was a quarterback 12 in fantasy football. So I found that pretty interesting. Was there anything else in this first tier that you kind of pointed to in any of these positions and was a little bit surprised by?
I guess in the quarterback position, that's it. Running back, I think Cam Akers was a surprise.
Sure.
Um,
You've
I'm
talked
looking.
about him as a buy.
Yeah, we talked about him as a buy. I think that's it. Isaiah Pacheco. I guess we can talk about Isaiah Pacheco, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the biggest one is Cam. I guess the biggest conversation is Cam, in my
Sure.
opinion, because of the way he started. I think Jamal was kind of exciting. Ramondre Stevenson, we kind of saw. Saquon, we hoped for. AJ Dillon. I guess another AJ Dillon, he was a bit disappointing throughout the whole season, and then in that second half,
down.
very up and down. So maybe Tyler
Yeah.
Algier, the rookie. You know,
Sure.
Cortland Sutton was, not Cortland Sutton, Cordell Patterson was supposed to be the guy to take over, got injured, kind of got into opportunity. So, yeah, I mean, those are probably the guys that I would
I think
probably
you're
say.
right. Cam Akers is going to be an interesting conversation
Yeah.
all off season
Yeah.
long.
Mhm.
That will be one of the big conversation points.
That's
When we
right.
look at the wide receiver room, I wouldn't say anything in particular stands out to me. I mean, Brandon Cooks being on there is interesting considering his relatively disappointing year. Same I could say about Alan Lazard, but
Mhm.
that's probably someone who Alan Lazard was in their flex and the rest of the team carried. Then we look at the tight ends here. Pretty old tight end room, all things considered. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
not exactly a bunch of youth there, but Evan Ingram is probably the biggest
biggest.
conversation point in my eyes because
Mm-hmm.
he was only on a 1 year deal. Now he'll be a free agent. To me, the Jags are a perfect landing spot for Michael Mayer in the draft because I don't
Right.
think he goes top 15 or anything, and they're in the playoffs. So if they win, if they don't, who knows what their spot will be. But
Right.
he feels like the perfect landing spot for the Jags. Great all around tight end. So will they re-sign Evan Ingram and kind of run with this? He's only 28 years old, but he's a hard one to gauge right now in Dynasty.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to highlight from this list before we move on?
I think that's about it. I think Evan Ingram was the biggest surprise. Darren Waller was a surprise. Obviously, the way he started. George
Sure.
Kittle, kind of became the safety blanket for Brock Purdy. But yeah, Evan Ingram, top 5. He finished tight end 5 this year, which I don't think anyone kind of expected.
And
It's crazy.
you and I, by the way, in a redraft league, we face each other off in our home league in the championship.
Mm-hmm.
And I started Evan Ingram, and I sat Darren Waller, and that almost was the reason that I lost the championship, which was crazy. But I picked him up as a waiver wire, and then he was a great start, and then they sat their players all
Yeah, the
third
whole
and fourth
time,
quarter.
so.
That was tough. Okay, let's move on to the players who showed up twice.
Okay.
The following players showed up twice on championship rosters. Guys, keep in mind, we don't have access to all of the championship rosters in the world.
Just our league.
Right? We don't have that data available. So this is a small sample size, but it's fun at least to look at. All right, so what stands out to you here? You know, these players, 2 players who showed up.
Yeah.
Or players who showed up twice on rosters.
2 players who showed up twice in rosters. I think the quarterback room is it's okay. I think what's surprising is Teddy. Obviously, he went down with Tua. But maybe Daniel Jones, Geno Smith. I think the expectation, like the fact that we're having a conversation of Daniel Jones and Geno Smith at the end of the fantasy season, saying that these guys were people that helped you win your leagues. I think it's crazy. I don't think we wouldn't have thought that we would be having this conversation right now. So I think that's pretty significant in the quarterback room.
I agree. I would say on Geno specifically, I know there were win now teams in our leagues who went out and bought Geno midseason or bought him before the trade deadline because he was on fire, and that obviously paid off for them. That was one of those players where it's like, oof, this could work out, but it could backfire. And I think obviously those people who won the championship with him are fairly happy. All right, we look at the rest of the group. I found it interesting that there was no tight ends. No tight ends appeared twice.
Yep.
So obviously that was interesting to see. And so you see in the first one there was 5 tight ends.
Right.
There's going to be 12 total tight ends. There's none in the 2 times, as in no one showed up twice. So there's 2 names we're probably missing here that have contributed to quite a few championship teams. But any running back stand out to you in particular?
Running back for me specifically, I think everyone's pretty legit. I guess Lenny, and I think maybe the biggest one probably is Alvin. Alvin was very disappointing, very up and down. You probably drafted him really early. I guess maybe in redraft and in dynasty perspective, he probably went, third, maybe fourth round, depending on where you got him.
It's like fifth, sixth, I think.
And you were hoping that he was going to be this guy, and he wasn't. And it was so many inconsistencies, a lot of Taysom Hill taking over the touchdowns.
Oh my gosh.
And that was so frustrating. Where did he finish? I'm trying to find it.
He finished RB16.
Okay.
RB16 on the year.
Okay.
But you're right. I had him as well in a couple championship games, and he was a huge letdown. 9 points on the week. Yeah. And what's frustrating about Alvin is the unexplainable lack of targets second half of the season. It just doesn't make sense. We were missing Olave. We were missing Michael Thomas. We were missing Landry. And we didn't see the target share that we're used to with one of the league's best pass-catching running backs. And now the reports are that the coaching staff is staying the same. Okay. I never want to watch another Saints game until that coaching staff is different. I cannot put myself through that again.
I don't even know if he's going to freaking play next year with all this drama. So let's see what happens.
He was a trade candidate. Maybe he moves on. I don't think he wants to be there personally. Looking at the wide receiver room, not all that surprising. No. Kirk definitely was helpful I think Kirk was one of those players who helped people get to the championship, but I don't think he helped win people championships. He was, as someone who owned him, he was one of my guys this year in redraft. He definitely helped me get to championships, but he did not help me win them. Yep. So interesting to see him on there.
Agreed.
All right, why don't we move on? Unless you have anyone else you want to highlight.
No. By the way, one thing I want to say: all these wide receivers, Stephon Diggs, Christian Kirk, Tyler Lockett, Amari Cooper, all finished in the top 15. Just FYI. Stephon Diggs, wide receiver 4, Christian Kirk, wide receiver 14, Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 12, and Amari Cooper, wide receiver 10. Just FYI.
Talk about one of the steals of the draft in redraft leagues, Tyler Lockett.
I think Tyler Lockett and Amari Cooper, personally. I mean,
Cooper was,
I was on the train saying, I'm not taking Amari Cooper. I don't trust in Jacoby Brissett. I didn't like the thought process. And Jacoby balled out. He was keeping them in the fight most of the time with Amari. So it was surprising.
He did ball out. Yeah. Those people, that will be a big conversation as well. Amari Cooper this offseason for sure. All right. Let's move into players who appeared 3 dose times on championship winning rosters. All right. We have one quarterback, and it's Jared Goff.
Come on, baby.
Jared Goff is helping people win their fantasy leagues.
Come on, baby.
And I'm sure that Jared Goff was on a lot of, because again, our dynasty leagues are super flex. And I'm sure that Jared Goff was on a lot of winning dynasty rosters this offseason. That just feels like a genuine. I don't feel like this is just an outlier in our leagues, is what I'm trying to say.
No, was great. It's not. And I think he was for both, dynasty and redraft. He was a guy that helped me go to the finals in my redraft league. I think it was against you. No, it wasn't against you.
It was, yeah.
It was against you. I was playing against you, but Jared Goff kind of helped me in the fight.
You sat Brady.
I did sit Brady. Goff. I mean, how the hell we know Brady's going to finally score 40-something points?
I was hoping you were going to start Brady before the week.
It was so hard to kind of gauge what to do. But yeah, Jared Goff has been something special this year, I think, and I think that he puts the Lions in a tough position in a quarterback perspective.
In a good way, yeah.
Top 10 quarterback, this year. So he was the guy. He went to Jared.
I'm just trying to do some quick maths here and figure out how many he threw 7 interceptions on the year. Wow, that's so good. And by the way, he hasn't thrown an interception. He didn't throw an interception from week 10 onwards. From week 10 onwards, Jared Goff didn't throw a single interception. That's wild.
He's good, man. I think he's good. He just needed time to develop in the offense.
He balled out. We'll see what happens.
Let's see.
I mean, if you have a Monrod, Jameson Williams, you feel a little bit better about that situation.
Exactly.
At this very point. All right, Josh Jacobs.
Wow.
Was so close to being a my guy. Do you remember early in the offseason? I was like, we got to be all in on Josh Jacobs. And then I got scared. Because everyone was like, don't buy Josh Jacobs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, am I missing something? And I fell for it. But Josh Jacobs, what do you think is going to happen with him? 24 years old. Is he going to be a Raider? Is he going to go somewhere in free agency? He'll be one of the top priorities in free agency if he does.
That's the thing, do you kind of go in do the Raiders think they have a decent foundation to kind of be contenders? Because I think you have Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, but the defense really struggled. The offensive line is a
sure.
massive struggle. So I wonder if they might just go the full rebuild and see something, or I'm just not sure what they're going to do with Josh Jacobs. But I think wherever he goes, he could be successful. But I'm also scared that he could be, in a committee as well. I think he can go in a scenario like that. So let's see. I mean, I think the ideal thing right now for Josh Jacobs is to resign.
Sure. I mean, you've had success there.
Yeah.
Why leave?
Resign, you're going to get a young quarterback, and maybe he kind of leads in. Sorry, he kind of stays in that. Okay, we're still going to give him the touches because the young quarterback is still going to develop.
Sure.
So
I would say it might be associated with what they do at quarterback. Because if they trade up for a quarterback, you re-sign Josh Jacobs, whatever it takes,
right,
to take the pressure off that young quarterback.
Right.
But I would say Jacobs, for me, I just think he absolutely proved himself as one of the best running backs this year in the league. So he'll be a hot priority, and I think he'll be a foundational piece for imagine the Chiefs go out and sign Josh Jacobs. Like one of these powerhouse teams that is just missing a true powerhouse running back, It could be great. I mean, the Raiders kind of messed up letting him just walk. It's
yeah. I mean,
here we are.
They still got time to sign him.
They got time. He wants to be a Raider, but also he wants money, and the Raiders don't have money. So we'll see. Wide receivers. Anything surprise you here in the wide receiver room? Probably DJ is the biggest one, right?
Yeah, DJ is the biggest one. I'll say DJ and Keenan Allen, the way Keenan Allen once again also started. But obviously, I think we all agree once Keenan's healthy, he's going to get the targets, and that's kind of what happened. And then DJ Moore, another guy, somebody that we were both off on, saying that we don't want any part of it. There was a quarterback carousel going there, firing the head coach. What's going to happen? And now we're here. DJ Moore helps you. He helped 3 teams either go to the fantasy playoffs or go into the fantasy playoffs or win their championship. So.
And he almost feels to me like one of those players that you brought to your final. I'm not sure that he helped you get to your final because we have so many disappointing performances. I mean, up from like week 1 to week 6, his highest total was 13 fantasy points. And there was multiple games under 5 points. And then from week 9 to week 11, he didn't have a game over 7 fantasy points. In week 14, if you need to get into the fantasy playoffs, and that was a must-win scenario for you, he put up 0.6 fantasy points. And then in the fantasy playoffs, he just balls out.
His most consistent time was week 15, 16, 17 with 18 points, 20 points, and 23. That was his 3 most consistent games of the year.
And I think the reason that I was so specifically off of DJ Moore was because of the price point in this offseason. Right? The conversation point that I always brought up was he's not a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. He's a wide receiver 2.
Right.
And he was being valued as a wide receiver 12 in Dynasty at that time. And being drafted in like the 3rd round of startups, we were like, this is too much. Let's pump the brakes. We just did a Dynasty mock draft yesterday, a startup. He went at the end of the 7th, if I'm not mistaken. Now, maybe he becomes a pretty good buy if that's going to be his value in Dynasty. I don't mind buying DJ at that price.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, when I think of DJ, I think of the whole quarterback scenario. What the hell is going to happen? I think, what are they, 7th? I think something like that. 7th in the draft?
They're 9th in the draft right now.
And
9th. I looked at it yesterday.
It's kind of like I was really hoping it was going to be CJ or Bryce, where now it's like, they still can be there, but now there's so much more competition at that level. Where now the Raiders saying we're moving on from Derek Carr. The Colts are top 5 pick. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen, but I don't know if they're going to.
At minimum, though, the price is much more appealing.
For sure.
Situation.
The price is definitely appealing, but the situation I don't love.
Sure.
We'll see what happens with DJ Moore.
For sure. Okay, and in the tight end position, I mentioned there was 2 guys that really dominated for people most of the season. Oddly enough, it is not Mark Andrews who appears 3 times. It is Travis Kelce who appeared 3 times on championship rosters.
That's of course.
He was very, very good all season long. I still remain someone who doesn't want Kelce in Dynasty. That's still where I am. If I can get a first round pick for him, I'm doing it.
When does it stop? You know,
There is a peak for every man.
when
Just
does it stop?
that is just a reality. And I'm a Chiefs fan. I want him to be great until he's 36. But there is very few examples of that being the reality. You just ride it till the wheels falls off, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part. It's like maybe if you have Travis Kelce, you're just saying, you know what, I don't have to worry about the tight end position until hopefully, like you said, 36. So another 3 years. I think he's 33, 32.
I just don't think he's going to get you there, though.
So, like,
I think he has one really good year left.
I think we've been saying that last year too. I think one more.
No, I was worried last year, but I wasn't in Dynasty in the sense like or in redraft in the sense like I'm not going to draft him. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's tough.
It is tough.
I'm curious what people feel about him in the comments below. Let us know. All right, let's move on to the 4 category. The following players have appeared 4 times in our championship rosters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 4 out of 12 leagues, these players appeared. The quarterback position. Everyone was doubting my guy, saying, I don't know, Tyreek is gone. Juju is washed. They don't have anybody. He's going to get found out. Well, all those people who said that got found out. Because my guy, Patty Mahomes, at 27 years old, appeared on 4 of 12 of our championship rosters. And there's no end in sight for Pat. Feels like you have one of the best quarterbacks. I think he's the best quarterback I've ever watched in my entire life. Right. But if you have him, you just feel like you have such an incredible pillar of a dynasty team. You don't sell him. You don't sell him in any scenario.
4, 5. Sorry, I was just counting how many times he's finished in the top, the top 5 quarterbacks in general. But yeah, it's hard to move away from Patrick Mahomes, and I think this is why you draft him so high. You know, you in a dynasty startup, you got him at the 101, the 102, depending on where you were at, and this is exactly why you draft him, because he takes you to these places. And he is the guy. He is the guy that has been a consistent top 5 quarterback. I wish I can do the average, and maybe I can do quick maths of what he averaged in the year, this year. Yeah. Right. So, Patrick Mahomes is the guy. Come on.
He is the guy. You should feel great if you have him. All right. At the running back position, we only have one running back who appeared on 4 championship rosters. I would say if you drafted him in the 3rd round, which is kind of where he was going of dynasty drafts, maybe 2nd, 3rd round. I don't know. It depends on your league. It paid off for you. That is Christian McCaffrey, who was in 4 of 12 championship winning teams. He is 26 years old. And I personally am pleasantly shocked that he has not been, he has technically been injured at San Francisco. Just hasn't been like an injury that's kept him out. But what do you do with CMC at this point?
I think he's on one of the best run offenses in the NFL, period. So you keep him.
Just a hold?
Yeah, you keep him, and it was a clear priority. And this was half a year with the 49ers.
Yeah.
You know, a full year with them, maybe it's a little bit different. You know, maybe maybe it's just different, you know. And maybe it's time to sell now and sell high and be like, well, maybe that's the thought process. He is with the best offense. Yeah. One of the best offensive lines, one of the best offensive head coaches, run head coaches. So maybe it's time to move on for him. But maybe that's a different conversation for another day.
Well, why don't we quickly discuss that? Who would you want to move on to? Because I agree in the sense like we said this about Aaron Jones 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Remember? We said Aaron Jones is 26 years old. Different caliber of player. Christian McCaffrey is like one of the best players in football right now, okay? So understand what I'm saying. They're not the same caliber of player.
Right.
But when we told people when Aaron Jones was 26 years old to look at potentially moving him, it was like all hell broke loose. Like, what are you talking about? It's Aaron Jones.
Right.
So I'm going to give you a list of names that I personally would feel comfortable
trading away.
Like, I would rather have these names than CMC right now.
Right.
Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, probably Ken Walker, Josh Jacobs.
I would agree with Josh.
And I think that's where the list stops for me.
Okay. What about Travis? You wouldn't say Travis?
I would prefer Travis. That's my bad. Yeah.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay.
I just didn't see him on the list. Yes.
I'm a little bit more skeptical with Breece and his injury, but at the same time, he's extremely young. So maybe
21.
Yeah.
Can I do something for you?
So maybe that's a different conversation. But all those guys you listed, I think I'll be really happy with.
Anyone else you add to that list?
The two top ones I love is Ken Walker and Josh Jacobs right now. Obviously, the way he finished, but no, I mean, those are kind of the youthful running backs in the NFL right now. And
Sure.
I will try and get maybe a top 5 pick if I can get a Jahmyr Gibbs once we know where he lands. And
I like that.
I doubt you can get you can get, a 101 with Bijan right
Probably
now
not,
for
yeah.
CMC. But if I can get even a wide receiver, if I can get the 106, 104, 105,
Yeah.
I think that feels really comfortable in a dynasty like rookie
How about
rookie
Saquon?
draft.
Saquon or CMC right now in Dynasty?
I'll take CMC.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so.
It's just based off the whole package, the offensive line,
I
the
get it.
offense.
Mm-hmm. It's the perfect spot for him.
Mm-hmm.
All right, no wide receivers appeared 4 times, but we have a tight end who appeared 4 times, and he might be in a buy low window at this point because of the end of the season. No Lamar Jackson, that really hurt his production, but he is the most necessary piece of this offense outside of Lamar Jackson. That is Mark Andrews. He appears 4 times on championship teams in our leagues, and Marky Mark, I mean, he's only 27 years old. We're talking about the landscape of dynasty football. In 3 years, he'll be 30.
Yeah.
And in 5 years, he'll be 32. I still think he can play at this level at that age. So Mark might be a really good buy low because he did kind of fumble into the playoffs. And then he helped you in week 17. He had a pretty good game.
Pretty good game. And
But what
think
can you
the
do without
biggest-
your top quarterback?
yeah,
really?
exactly. That's the biggest thing. The biggest thing is that he didn't have Lamar, Tyler Huntley, and not that. I mean, we've seen the success with Tyler Huntley, but I think it's also the playoff front. A lot of divisional games as well. Cleveland, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, I think that was pretty significant in weeks 15, 17, 14. Yeah. So it was tough. It was tough for Mark Andrews this year. But once again, Lamar Jackson missing the second half of the season once again just doesn't help. And wonder, hopefully we can figure something out in that area,
Yeah. All right. I did a little something just for fun,
Mm-hmm.
kind of to end the video. I looked at the average age per position on our championship rosters this year
Right.
because I thought that might be interesting to at least discuss. So to be clear, if a player showed up 4 times, I'm counting 4 people, right?
Right.
So I did the math correctly is what I'm trying to tell people. Like,
Right, okay.
if a player, I'm not just like Mark Andrews, I'm not counting once. I'm counting him 4 times, and I'm also counting his age 4 times. That makes sense,
That's
right?
fair.
Because the percentages would be different if I only counted Mark once and his age once. So just so everyone understands, in every position, I added the player every time that they showed up, and I added their age as well when I did the math. So
Mm-hmm.
the quarterback position, the average age for the quarterback position is 29.3 years of age, which is interesting. I thought it might be lower than that because Pat Mahomes shows up 4 times at 27, Goff shows up 3 times at 28. But then you had, I think what brought it down was Geno Smith twice, Teddy Bridgewater twice, Aaron Rodgers twice. Aaron Rodgers at 39.
Right.
That probably would have brought the averages down a little bit. And then you also had Kirk and Russ, who are both at 34, who could have potentially brought it down. But I thought that number might be a little lower.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, maybe it's in the right spot. I mean, there's a lot of guys that
I mean, the
over that
math
peak,
say yes.
over the 27 peak, 27, 20,
Sure.
20 something peak. So I think that makes sense.
Which, you know what? It's actually interesting that number is so high when we're looking at Dynasty startups. I can't think of a single quarterback that went in the first 8 picks that is over the age of 27 or 6 this year. All right, at the running back position, the average age was 25.3. And again, I think that age would be younger, but you have CMC at the age of 26 4 times.
Yeah.
So obviously that impacts it. But I guess you have to offset it. Josh Jacobs at the age of 24. So that number feels pretty.
It feels pretty good. I mean, it's right underneath the turn of the running backs,
Yeah.
So that feels
It's
pretty
like that's where we start to get a little bit worried.
Yeah.
At the wide receiver position, the average age was 26.7, which again shocked me a little bit because you have Devontae Adams and Keenan Allen both 3 times who are at the age of 30.
Mm.
And then you have Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, and Stephon Diggs all twice who are over the age of 28. So a little bit shocking, but I guess that makes sense. 26.7.
Yeah, it does.
And then the tight end position, which again,
I think this makes sense.
yeah, this makes sense. 29.1 years old was the average age.
Yeah. Mark.
So
all these guys. I don't think there was
Mark
anyone
and
under.
Trav.
I don't think there was anyone under 27.
There was one, which you're right, not under 27.
Right.
I thought you were gonna say the average age, but
maybe Dawson Knox. What is he? 26.
Dawson Knox is 26.
Okay, yeah, 26.
But let's be honest, Dawson Knox didn't win any one championships. No. He was given a ring. He kind of rode the bench a little bit.
He was there.
But anyway, I thought this would be fun. Shout out to Moxie who suggested it.
Huge love, man.
And I hope you guys enjoyed this. So huge love. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLand fam.